I'm Hebert, former NHL goaltender, and I am the mask.
And I'm Kent French, longtime broadcaster, and I am the mic.
Can you believe it? We are back together again on our own podcast called, you got it, The Mask and the Mic.
Yeah, it's a place for conversations about sports, entertainment, and the journeys that happen in between.
And believe it or not, after a year away from me, Kent French is back. And with this new podcast, we're going to dive into a lot of things in his life and, of course, talk hockey, sports, travel abroad, and pretty much anything that's on the books.
And we're going to kick things off on this premiere episode about our story, how we met, why I decided to travel, what did Gibo do in the year that I was gone, and much, much more. That all happens, Gibo, on a podcast called
The Mask and the Mic.
Welcome, everyone, to the premiere installment of a podcast with Guy Hebert, the original Mighty Duck, and I am Kent French. And why, Guy?
Why? Yeah,
off
that's
the top.
question.
Off the top. Everyone's going to want to know why. Why are we doing a podcast when the podcast market is loaded right now?
Are you saying it's saturated right
It is
now?
saturated.
But we're going to bring good content. And I think, we got to get this on the table first and foremost, right? Is, your decision to leave me.
You're still bitter.
Bitter's not the right word. I think, like emotional. Sad.
Welcome to the therapeutic podcast. As
we're gonna go down the rabbit hole.
We air all of our laundry here for you to listen to.
Yeah. Well, see, you're interrupting me already.
I know.
So the reason I think this podcast has started is that, doing a pregame, postgame, and then I know you went on this epic family trip, and it'll be fun to listen to a lot of that and your experiences there. But it left me high and dry. And so I had to have a new host, which turned out fabulous. But I missed you, buddy. I guess that's the end of it is I missed you, miss spending time. And I think right now, and that's the thing is this has given us that opportunity to get back together and we can talk not just hockey, not just travel, but an entire host of other things. And hopefully we have some guests and some people. I don't know. Can we have people call in?
Keywords, hopefully. That people are going to want to talk to us. Yes, you and I happen to know a few people out there, so we certainly will. We certainly will open up our Rolodexes and see if anyone responds to our texts or DMs and our messages.
I have one. I can't give it away just yet, but I've already gone out there and said, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. Would you be willing?" Former pro athlete. That's all I'll say.
I think we both know him. We're both familiar with this gentleman.
Yeah, we are, and so he said yes. So I know we'll have at least one. So I feel good about that.
Well, you got to jump off the cliff with something in your back pocket, right? I mean,
that's true.
Let's be honest. At least we have a possibility of one. So let's pull the curtain back for a moment as we go back to 2024, as the Anaheim Ducks season is approaching an end. And I pulled you aside and I said, Guy, here's the deal. We got this crazy idea. We are, my wife and I, Michelle, and our daughter, 7-year-old daughter at the time, Everly, are going to step away from our lives as we know it. We are going to jump on an airplane and we are going to travel the world. So I will not be here next year. And you're like, so tell me when you're sure about this.
Yeah.
Just so I
there was a lot of conversation.
Tell me when you're certain.
Was it real? That's what I want to know. Was this a real thing or yeah?
Tell me this is really going to happen. I said, okay, I am telling you now. It is really going to happen. And oh, by the way, I had to hear myself say that over and over and over again. By no stretch of the imagination was this an easy decision to step away from for me personally, not just speaking for myself, a broadcasting career of 25 years and doing this whole journey with the family. And this will unfold as we continue to have these podcasts and conversations about, the incredible fulfillment that it did bring me and my wife, us as a couple and us as a family. So I would do it again tomorrow. I'm not, just so you know, I'm here. But yes, so that happened. I am back, but our relationship stems back many moons prior to that. I think we sat next to each other for over 10 years, correct?
That is correct. Hey, first, before you go any further, when you made that decision, I was fully supportive. I thought it was an incredible opportunity. My sadness put aside, of course, but yeah, I just thought it was like, hey, if you don't do it now, I've got a grown adult daughter, and there are things
Yeah.
that we did as a family that I look back and say like that they were the best things I've ever done. And you can't replace that because they don't get younger. They don't stay that same age. So I thought it was a great and wonderful thing that you guys were able to experience.
And I will, and again, these are things that will unfold as we go. But I mean, coming back like this, it's not easy. This has been incredibly challenging, and I knew it would be. And I knew, this new life, if you will, is going to be different. And it's going to be a lot of work. But I think what I told you is I need to be uncomfortable. I need to shake things up a little bit, and I need to go out there and push myself and see what else I can do. So, and here we are doing this. Like, I'm incredibly excited. And who knows if this will ever happen, right? We don't know. So, but we are here now, and this is awesome, and so excited to be reunited. And it feels so good, Gibo. But yeah, so I mean, we were just talking before we pressed record on this whole thing that you and I, our first
Interaction.
hosting section. Well, no, our first interaction was me covering you when you were with the Mighty Ducks back in the day.
That is.
I was just a microphone to you. I was just a microphone to you, Gibo. I was another annoning microphone asking you questions.
I think you had the camera on your shoulder.
I did have that.
The microphone. I think you were like a one-man band doing the whole tricks of the trade, right? You were doing interviews, editing, producing, everything.
Yeah, and normal stuff. Like Paul Correa didn't want to talk to me. Steve Richin didn't want to talk to me. Normal, right? Jamu talked to me. Jamu,
he'll talk to anybody.
He talks to anyone. So yeah, it was back in the day. I mean, I've covered this team for a long, long time. So it was cool. It is, I mean, I don't talk about this a lot when it comes to our relationship, but being able to have a friendship with you and have this working relationship, being able to sit next to you, talk hockey for as long as we did. And now being able to do this on this platform is really surreal for me. Just the fact that I was able to, back in the day, used to ask you questions in the locker room and outside the locker room. And here we are doing this. So it is awesome. It is, I'll call it an honor to do it with you. This is really cool. And I say this a lot on the broadcast when you and I were chatting it up, but you are the original Mighty Duck, man. And I don't think a lot of people not give you credit's not the right word, but acknowledge the fact that you are the very first draft pick in the expansion draft. You were the first one that was on the roster, and you are a big part of the organization still. And a lot of organizations can't say that. And it's really cool that's
thank you for remembering. That's what I always say.
Well, I remember. I'm trying to make sure everyone else knows what's going on. Like how cool this is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a for me, it's a very proud moment in my career to be able to leave St. Louis in the expansion draft, be the first ever selection of a franchise. Something back when I was taken in the expansion draft, I certainly didn't take it lightly. I was like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime for me as an athlete to, have an impact on the organization as a hockey player, but also to be, kind of a steward of a brand new organization in a town that's never had hockey before. You had the Kings up the road, so you knew there was going to be an instant rivalry. So, I mean, I kind of looked at it as like, if I can survive year one, which for a goaltender and expansion team is almost impossible. But we were able to do that. But I looked at it as a challenge of starting to pave the road. And I think a lot of the guys in that inaugural team, we thought about, hey, can we start paving this road toward a Stanley Cup? Like, we're not going to get there immediately or possibly while we're even here. But, making relationships in the community, starting that from scratch. And I think that, myself and a lot of those inaugural team members were able to, make an impact in Orange County. And it's been wonderful for me to sit here after 32 seasons to kind of watch that grow. I had 8, great years here. I mean, highs and lows, some great times in the playoff runs for our first evers. So being a part of a lot of first evers was a lot of fun for me.
No one can speak to this better than you can, but you were here at the beginning, hockey in a Sunbelt market, and now you get to see kids being drafted out of the Anaheim Ducks program, the Junior Ducks, kids that have been here. I mean, now, Henry and Susan have done one heck of a job when it comes to grassroots hockey. We talk about it all the time, but when you first stepped in that arena, I mean, but once the shine wore off a little bit, then it was, hey, Detroit's in town, all Detroit fans. The Rangers are in town, all Ranger fans. It didn't matter who it was. most of the arena was filled with the opposition's jerseys on and sweaters on, right?
Yeah, and still to a certain extent, that still happens when you have those original 6 teams roll into, the Honda Center, because they come once a season, right? And so everybody's, for the most part, not born here in Orange County or Southern California. We're all kind of transplants. You are an original, but I am not.
Can't you tell by the tan skin? Yeah.
Yes. Well, really the flow, but that's another story. But yeah, it's cool to see that, watching those original teams, they still have that lore about them. And, people that I see all the time at the games, they'll have their, whatever Detroit Red Wings jersey on, and I'll walk through them by in the concourse and look at them and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. And they're like, it's the only time I wear it. Or if the Rangers are in town, I wear it for one game all season long, my hometown team. And I'd say, hey, as long as you're a hockey fan, I'm okay with it. And as long as you support us every other game besides, your childhood team, I'm okay with it.
But you have to admit now, kids, because back in the day, kids obviously didn't have a chance to grow up as a Ducks fan, a Mighty Ducks fan when you played, and then now a Ducks fan. But now kids grow up as a Ducks fan. We have generations now that not only have grown up as a Ducks fan, now they have kids that are Ducks fans. So you see this groundswell. Again, calling it grassroots, that you now have a team that you grew up rooting for, that now your kids grow up rooting for. It's great. I mean, that's what you want to build, is a fan base and a passion. And you've seen this. You mentioned when you came here, they had the Kings, the rivalry, which is still alive and well, if not better, with both teams now, on the upswing again. So yeah, it's awesome for you to be able to see that and watch it. And now, high school, Gibo, you and I talked to you in a bleachers. You were a goalie consultant for one of the high school hockey teams. I remember doing an interview with you then. It's
J. Sarah Catholic High School was the first high school hockey team around, and Dave Carpa, a former teammate of mine, was the head coach, and I was able to, he said, hey, my goalies need some help. Would you come in and help? So it was kind of, it was fun to get back on the ice, work with some high school kids and try to teach them a few things that might make them a little bit better. And I didn't try to overhaul anything. It was more of just like, hey, try these small adjustments. But as you mentioned, it's incredible to the extent the high school hockey has. There's national champions from Southern California. I won't name some of the high schools because, there's rivalries, but there's a couple champions. So, and I think maybe a former Anaheim Mighty Duck legend might have had a son on one of those teams.
Maybe. Allegedly.
Yeah.
We don't want to give him too much credit now.
No. Not until we have him on it. When he confirms that he will be a guest, then we'll give him some love.
Yes. I will say this now, that every time I think of California hockey, I think of Kings Ducks, I think of the outdoor games, I think of the one and only that the two franchises participated in, which I was lucky enough to be a sideline radio reporter for, was the game at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, I was drinking beer, having hot dogs up in the stands.
Yes,
I was a witness. It was amazing. It was
amazing. Here is my dream, and I think this is going to come to fruition. I want the NHL gurus, when it comes to making ice, say they can make ice anywhere, right?
Well,
make ice
South Florida
on the sand. I want the waves. I want an ice rink. I want bathing suits, and I want hockey. Let's do it. Ducks, Kings on the sand in HB, and I'm talking about Huntington Beach. If you got to go up to Manhattan, it's fine. Whatever you want to do. Yeah. But Huntington Beach has got the surf championship. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there.
Of Newport Beach. Like, what are you pointing to? Yeah. So
listen, that's not a green screen. That's actually right behind me.
I know. This is actually in the back in your house. Yes, I think, and I believe it to be true, that there will be hockey someday in two NHL teams. Hopefully here in SoCal will play on the sand, and I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I've got friends, or a friend, I won't give him a shout out just yet, but he does outdoor arenas. And so there is the technology for it to be built. Just a matter of, who's willing to probably incur the costs, whether it's the two local teams, the NHL, whoever wants to do it. But can you imagine building like bleachers on one side and then just looking at the rink with the waves crashing in the background?
Yes. Yeah, done.
If you want to sell hockey, can you think of a better way?
Release the Dolphins. Just have dolphins go through. Like, it's going to be, yes, I think it's happening.
it'll be like
I'm
the
signing up
Tahoe
now.
golf tournament, right? All of a sudden, people are going to be bringing their yachts and boats and be
Yes.
floating there, trying
Go to a
get
hockey
peek.
game and get a sunburn. Like, that's like, no one ever thought that'd be possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine some
It's
pucks being fired out and people diving off their boats to try to retrieve the puck.
like McCovey Cove
Yeah.
in San Francisco. You got the plunging of the balls with the home run balls, people in canoes out there in kayaks. Yeah. So anyways, that we're putting it out there. I think it's going to happen.
All right.
But I do want to get back before I forget to bring it up. Going back to the history of Kent and Guy, we have to go back.
We got way off track there.
I don't know. I know, right? This is maybe that's
this is why this is gold.
Yeah, this is gold, right?
This is gold.
If you're still with us, thank
Yeah.
you. If you already tuned us out and you've moved on to somebody else, then whatever.
Give us another try.
You're going to miss some gold coming up right now, because I don't know the year, and I, obviously a lot of prep goes in these podcasts because I've done no research. But back in the day, Gibo, you were newly retired, and somehow, some way, I was doing a show for Adelphia Cable. We ended up on a couch in someone's house watching. What was it? Was it a playoff game?
Yeah, it was a playoff game, and somehow I want to say it was against the Dallas Stars. So that could narrow down the Google search of what year it was. But yes, I was asked if I would show up to present a flat screen TV to a winner, and literally
next to some Yahoo who you had no idea who was, some cable, a true cable sports reporter guy.
Yeah, well, somebody had to hook up the new TV to the cable. So I thought that nobody better than the guy from Adelphia Cable, who was also going to be the host, which you were.
That was me. And Giba, I think you still had a flow, by the way, talking about, flows here. I think you still had some hair going on.
Imagine if there was a picture of that.
That was a long time ago. I have it on a beta tape. Now, for all those of you that aren't familiar with a beta tape, it's a large tape that used to go inside of a large camera. They don't make them anymore, I believe. But yes, the footage is somewhere to be found.
Yeah, that would be great.
You and I giving away a TV. We had just met, and
we stayed, right? We stayed and watched the whole time, right?
You signed autographs. People hung out. They had a whole party for us. They fed us. It was it was a thing. It was
for sure a win-win on our part.
I believe you were a surprise guest. No one knew that Guy Hebert was going to show up, and they were true Ducks fans, and they were super excited.
Did the old knock on the door, and I might have had the flow.
You had something going on. And by the way, if you are listening to this podcast and you were in that house that day, let us know.
You might. Oh, how great would that be?
Is that cool?
That would be
Think
fabulous.
about that.
Yeah. How do we don't put that on our social or something like that? Like how to find those. I mean, let's just take a stab in the dark. I retired in 2001. I did a couple things with the team for like 2 years. Then I went back into full retirement by the full year lockout. I'm going to say it was after the full year lockout. So what's that like between? I mean, who knows? Maybe it was the
Gibo, I think
season.
It might have been, because I went to work for the team in September of 2003. So I came on board as an employee with the Ducks the year. So they had just had the run, right? And they just got beat by the Devils. So then I came on board that September. So yeah, prior to that, it was, I'm not sure, but it was around that time.
All right. So we'll say somewhere between my retirement in 2001.
Yep.
I didn't do anything for an entire year. And then I actually did some work with the team in probably 2002, 03. So yeah, between 2002, 03 and we'll call it championship season. So we got to find people from like a bandwidth of 2003 to 2007. If you're out there, let us know.
If you're out there, we want to hear from you. Absolutely. I do want to ask you, Gibo, now that we're kind of going in the Wayback Machine, why in the hell did you want to get into broadcasting? Like, why? Like, did you ever anticipate that you wanted to be on TV and do some hockey analysis, or did it just kind of happen? Was it the opportunity just present itself and you're like, yeah, I'll give it a shot and see what happens?
Actually, like a little bit of all of that. I think I didn't want to get into coaching. I knew the grind of a player. I also knew the grind of the coaching staff, the instability of being a coach in the NHL or really at any level. So I always thought, well, if I was going to do anything, I'd be the goaltender consultant, because back in that day, your goalie coach would come into town. Ours was Francois Allaire. He would fly in from Montreal, spend 7 days, maybe 10 days, and then he would be gone, and we wouldn't see him for 2-3 weeks. So at that time, that was a good recipe for me. I'm like, hey, I can enjoy being retired. I can come in and work with the goalies for a little bit, and then they don't need me. They don't want the goalie coach around every single day. Conversely, it actually changed pretty quickly after that. So I said, yeah, I don't know if that's for me. And then I had talked to the Ducks because I had done some alumni things with them. And then, when the full lockout happened, I can remember my daughter was pretty young still. And she said, hey, because I was, getting dressed after dinner or before dinner to go to a game. And she's like, I thought you retired to stay at home with me. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty accurate. So when they had the whole season lockout, I decided I wasn't going to go back. I was going to enjoy retirement, watch her grow up, do the carpool stuff, things that, much like your trip, I was extremely fortunate to be able to do. And I loved every minute of it. I didn't miss anything as she grew up, which I think is pretty rare. So that was really nice for my wife and I. But getting back to broadcasting, I have to give Aaron Teets, the president of the Ducks, a lot of credit. At one point I had talked to him and he said, hey, listen, if you're ready to come back and do something, just let us know. And it probably took me a couple of years to get back to him. And I remember, our daughter was like a sophomore, junior in high school. And I looked at my wife one day and I said, she's our only child. She's going to be out of the house in a couple quick years. And I'm like, if we don't start doing something, and we wait until she leaves and we're empty nesters, I think we're both going to look at each other and say, okay, what's next? So I called Aaron and he said, hey, this is great timing. Would you be interested in jumping on broadcast? And I said, well, for doing what? He says, we're looking for somebody to do the pregame. Hazy, Brian Hayward, had been doing pregame, the in-game, and the post-game since I started playing. I mean, he was doing everything. He was actually my goalie coach.
The OG. He's been there from the beginning.
Yeah. So as it worked out, the opportunity kind of just arose. And I remember going up to LA. They said, we want to take a little bit off of Hazy's plate. You can jump on and do the pregame, intermission, postgame. And that way he can be on it, but he won't be, he won't be slammed. So it's really a funny story because I said, sure, what do I need to do? Hey, you need to drive to LA tomorrow to meet with Fox Sports West. I said, okay. Jumped in the car, went up there, sat for like an hour or two, talked. And as you can tell, and everybody at home can tell, I love to talk and especially talk about hockey. And, the meeting went great. And then I said, well, what do I do next? They said, yeah, you're hired. Come up tomorrow because we have a Kings Ducks meeting, which, every year there would be the Fox Sports West meeting with both sets of broadcasters. And we'd go up there and have a little powwow and have a good time. And I get introduced to both sets of broadcast teams, both the Kings and the Ducks. And it was kind of that initiation. And then I was just thrown on TV, which, I'm sure you remember, which is hilarious because the only advice I ever got was, hey, make sure you look at the camera. And I said, okay. So I think it was that first night, Frenchie, and, I think it was you, Hazy, and I were sitting on that desk and got the jib and whatever and the single. And I don't really know what's going on. I don't know any of the jargon. And I remember thinking, okay, they said, make sure I look at the camera. So apparently I was staring at the camera when it was on, it was off. I didn't know. And I didn't want to not look at the camera. And so,
all due respect, I'm just going to stop you just for a second though, because there is no, hey, let's go to the studio and let's do a run through. Let's like practice and pretend, okay, here comes the tally light. That means there's a red light and that's your camera. It means that's on you. You need to look at that camera. None of that. It was throw you on the set, 3, 2, 1 live. Welcome to Ducks Live, and you are hot.
Yeah.
It's like,
be careful what you say.
You gotta give you a little, it's not easy by any means. So that I just wanted to need to be a little bit of a backstory because you didn't have any formal training whatsoever. They just kind of threw you into the fire and said, hey, Guibo, do your thing.
Yeah. And part was the timing, right? Because, by the time I called and they said yes, it was literally like the season was starting. And, and I didn't mind getting thrown in the fire. I had a microphone in front of my face my entire career. But when you're on the other side of the microphone, it was a transition. And I've always said, everybody, yourself everybody I worked with, Johnny Allers, Brian Hayward, wonderful to me, giving me some little clues, tips, all the producers, Mike Levy back in the time, Bob Sipowicz, they were all great and to help me to get comfortable. And of course, some of our stage managers, were really good too, just being like, okay, hey, when I'm pointing at this thing, that means you're supposed to look at it. So,
right.
But yeah, and yourself, of course, taking me under your wing and making me comfortable in front of the camera. So thank you to you and everybody with the transition into a whole new world.
You know what though? I mean, it's as anything, right? It's like reps. The more reps you do, the more comfortable you get. And before you knew it, you were there and it was easy. And obviously you mentioned you're very comfortable, carry on a conversation as well as anyone can. And obviously uber knowledgeable about the sport. I know you always want to talk about goaltending and sometimes we have to get away from that. But
yes,
that being said, no, I mean, it took you a little time to be comfortable and be, polished, if you will,
yes,
and be absolutely a broadcaster that I think you're one of the best out there. So yeah, very cool. And then, I mean, that's how these things start. And then that turned into, like I mentioned, I don't know how many years we sat next to each other, but it was a while though, because it was then, and then we had different hosts would come in.
Yeah. You were like running, you were down
Fox
on the bench.
They send me down. They go, okay, Kent, this year we're going to bring in someone else. And and two, like for me, it was frustrating because I wanted to be the host and be up. I'd been a sideline for a while and wanted to kind of move and continue to be hosting with you and up on the set with Hazy. And, Fox kept running people in and said, well, we want this person to be here. So we'll put you down there. And maybe it's a testament to versatility. I hope that was the case because I could do that job and do it well. But yeah, so finally it was, finally it happened where, I was able to stay up there permanently with you, which was good. And
yeah, and because then you can create chemistry, right? I mean, I think it was probably in a weird way, it was probably really good for me to work with different hosts.
Oh, for sure.
So I learned different personalities. I learned that not everybody did it the same way as the host. And, we had some great guys. I mean, probably too many to name, but we had some really great guys who filled in for you. And then I think once you were there in that seat permanently and I was in the seat permanently, I think, it became kind of our show, which was really kind of cool, right? I think, Johnny and Hazy would then be up top. And then it was like, hey, we'd be able to do a 2-box with them, which back in the day, I had no idea what a 2-box was.
Yeah.
Now I do.
Hey, you and I are in a 2-box right
That's
now.
Right.
As far as I know, if I set this thing up right, God knows if this is going to come out. If we're even recording, I see a red light on, so I think we're okay right now.
The funny thing is that we haven't shared any of our technical difficulties to anyone just yet, because it's amazing that two grown men would have such a difficult time with like very little equipment.
Yes,
but we'll share that at another later date.
We put together some fun promos of us trying to put this whole thing together and test our mics, and I don't know. I found it highly entertaining when I watched it. Hopefully that translates to other people and they find it entertaining as well. But you know what? Shout out though to Mark Rogandino and Mike Pomerantz who did sit on that desk, and those guys are terrific guys and they're still friends, and we still stay in touch. We obviously see Rogo all the time on the golf course.
Yeah.
If you're on a golf course, there's a really good chance you're going to see Mark Rogandino. You'll hear reggae music in a golf cart like 5 holes away, and that will be Rogo.
Yes. And you can't mistake his voice because he's probably speaking fairly loudly. And Rogo, that's a compliment.
That is a compliment to you, Rogo. Yeah, and for me, I came over from Adelphia. Like I mentioned, I started in 93. I'm sorry, 93. That's when the team started. I was 2003, September. And coming from the cable world, we're still doing a show called Center Ice, still doing a show called This Week in Angels Baseball. I was still trying to keep those things alive. Rich Cooley, who is now on the OC Vibe side, was a freelancer. He was editing shows in the edit bay. After everybody left, we would be in there till 2, 3 in the morning. Cooley was editing these shows, and I was sleeping on the floor after I gave him, and he just wake me up when he needed help with whatever it was. Fun stories back in the day of all the different things you do to make, to get to the next level, right? They'll do anything. I lived and breathed, my work. And another a side note why I took off for a year. But yeah, so
Yeah, well earned.
yeah, so you get in, and so then you go with the Ducks, and then we started this show called MDTV, Mighty Ducks Television, right, on the internet. And I believe, and I have good reason to believe, it was the very first online post-game show in the National Hockey League. But, Gibo, something you might not have noticed, MDTV we got a little cease and desist from somebody saying that is a medical doctor television.
Oh.
So MDTV
I've never heard that.
went away, and it became Welcome Inside Ducks TV. That was our show. So again, that was another one where after the game, we would interview everybody around the arena, security, catering, ushers. Cooley and I would do it. Cooley and we would drive carts. And one year when the Olympics, way back in the day, Cooley had all the medals around his neck, and he played guitar behind me in the background. Like, we did some weird stuff, and we were there till 2 a.m. again, editing this stuff and putting it up. So did all this stuff. And then I was in arena, did all the in-arena stuff, all the announcing. Do you remember Jiggy's Loft, when we gave away Jiggy's Loft?
I do. I think I had just left the team. I think I actually might have just retired. And I'm not going to lie to you, I tried to win Jiggy's Loft.
Well,
but I didn't. I did not win it.
I remember, and it's the only time I remember being booed. I know I'm sure I've been booed many other times, but on the ice, we're doing the giveaway, and they bring out this Jiggy's Loft cardboard cutout, and they put it in front of the net, right? And they unveil it, and there is a puck-sized hole in the middle that you have to hit from center ice.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Everybody started booing because, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, that thing is
we didn't think that's what you had to do to win.
No, nobody kind of knew. And so that was.
And just to make it clear, Jiggy is former Mighty Duck, Anaheim Duck goaltender J.S. Giguere. Just
getting jiggy with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah. Nobody was happy, especially, and Jiggy wasn't happy. And I remember. So yeah, in arena, and then started able to do a little sideline, did stuff for KDOC back in the day. That's when I was able to first get going and do some reporting. And then, to your point, kept going to Fox Sports West, going, knocking on the door. Can I do something? And give Aaron Tietz, again, you mentioned Aaron Tietz, the president. He was a director of broadcasting back in the day too. He was an advocate. And I remember so I did some Angel stuff, did some Duck sideline, and I said, I want to host. They ended up, for a test run, they put me on the desk for a high school football championship game at then, I think it was Edison Field back in the day. So Angel Stadium, and it was Cal Poly against Mater Dei, and it was raining. And I was on this desk, and I was interviewing, I think Jay Schrader was co-host with me, former Washington Redskin quarterback. And then I had volleyball players and football players, and I don't know what they ran it all at me.
Well, listen, my daughter went to Mater Dei, and I know that the Monarchs, they travel well for their football programs, for all the sports programs.
Coach Rollison back in the day. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it was fun stuff. So yeah, all that stuff, and here we are today. So
a lot of us started, sleeping on the floors of buses in the minors, trying to.
Yep. Goes back to that too, right?
Just trying to make our way, like you said, evolve as a player, broadcaster, whatever it was, and you try to just make yourself better each day to be able to improve and have somebody give you an opportunity to play or move on to the next level. And happy to say we both did that.
We did. And what I do want to ask you, as I put my interview hat on, I try not to when you and I are talking, but I always want to ask.
As you start looking up, are there questions up there?
I always want to ask you questions. I don't know, it's just kind of a thing I do, I guess. But what has been the most challenging part of that transition from athlete to broadcaster for you?
Well, I think as the athlete, you're so focused, right? I mean, I used to say that, I didn't know what was going on outside of my world. A lot of tunnel vision of preparation, getting ready to play. The locker room was, like your safe place, your sanctity. And I think as I moved to the other side as a, broadcaster, announcer, analyst, I just think that there's a kind of an oddness or a weirdness or whatever going into the locker room and trying to talk with the players, because I still envision myself as a player or as a former player, as an alumni, and I always think of myself as the broadcast analyst or whatever, that's kind of the other part, but it becomes a big part, right? Because, players are very protective of themselves and their teammates. And when broadcasters come in and want to talk about, performance or whatever it might be, for me, I found that to be challenging because sometimes I would just go in and say like, hey, I just want to talk you off the record as as a former player, as an alumni of this, this organization. How you doing? What are you doing? What's, whatever. This is not for TV. This isn't for print. This isn't for anybody else. This is a conversation between the two of us. And other times you have to put your broadcast analyst hat on and go in and say, hey, this is on the record. This is, we got a camera here. So for me, I think that was just a little bit challenging to understand why they were maybe protective in what they were saying to me, even though I had lived their life. So that I would say that was the biggest challenge. Yeah, that was long-winded answer, but that's what it was.
That's a great answer, and it gives a lot of people a lot of insight too. Because after a tough loss, you're pissed off. Like, it's not easy, right? And I know it's part of the quote unquote responsibility of an athlete to answer questions and be available to the media, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And there are folks out there that ask questions that can get under your skin, sometimes purposely.
Yeah.
And then there becomes this protection element that athletes have that they don't want to say too much. And, they want to either be done with the interview or they're just very careful what they say so the words aren't twisted. And there's a trust issue that I think that has been the thing I take the biggest pride in, is that I want the people I talk to and the people I'm around to trust me, to know that I'm going to put the best version of them on the air and not do anything to do them wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's something too that they can, once they get to know you and understand your career and especially that you're a former player, then I think that certainly is the case. And the guys trust you and they talk to you. And when you say it's off the record, it is truly off the record, because unfortunately, sometimes that's not the case and they get burned.
Yeah.
And they don't want to talk anymore.
You couldn't have said it any better, because that is the case, is there's that trust. And once you have the interaction with a particular broadcaster or sideline reporter, that player does feel comfortable and will share certain things. In today's world with all the social media, it's, everybody's a critic, and it's part of your job now. And I think it's disappointing in a certain way that, I think if I was playing today, I would have no social media. I know teams want their players out there because of fans and in that interaction. I got great advice as a young player when I first turned pro, and they were like, hey, kid, don't read the newspaper tomorrow after a game. Any game, he's like, yeah, the guys are like, if you played well and you can sleep well at night, if you didn't play well, and you have to play better the next opportunity. You don't need to get, the accolades from the paper or now social media to say that you played well. And if you don't play well, you certainly, it is something that really can drag you down. And we don't need to go on the rabbit hole of a whole bunch of other stuff that we can get into at a later date. But I think that, players of today, everybody, when they do an interview, they have to protect themselves. So a lot of answers are just canned. It's a lot of, protecting myself that I don't say the wrong thing. I played with, a player, I won't name any names, but he was an incredibly open and honest player. And he basically told everybody exactly what he felt. And he was a superstar. And so he could. And everybody loved his sound bites because they knew that they were going to get raw and unfiltered. Now, because he was a superstar, he could do it. And there weren't really, I would say any retribution or whatever from teammates or the organization, because he was held in that higher of a regard. But it's so rare. And I think that people are disappointed that, like, if you're interviewing me after a game, that I can't just say, whatever I honestly feel. Because if I did, and I've seen it recently, I think in the World Junior, there may have been some comments one player from one team said, and just said, I don't know why people just don't say what they feel. And he got a lot of backlash. So I think it's a very blurred line of what athletes can say. And it's unfortunate because I think people would love the raw honesty.
Did you get media training at all when you first got in the National Hockey League?
Not originally. So we're winding the clock way back. I turned pro in 1989 coming out of Hamilton College, and there really wasn't any training, and I think that might have been part of the reason that, certain players were able to say, whatever they wanted to say. And I mean, I think, veteran guys in the locker room were really key to, rookies and younger players about, kind of how to handle themselves, especially with the media.
And you've traveled with the team a little bit this year and in the past, and obviously I had a chance to travel full time with the team for many years. And you notice that the players, they go out as a group for the most part, and they go back to the room.
Yes.
It is, they don't go anywhere. They don't talk to anyone except for their teammates, the people they trust, and they get back in the room and they close the door. And if they want to hang out, they hang out in other people's rooms, they play video games or whatever it may be, but it's like, it is safer there than going out and God knows pictures or videos or anything that certainly can give the wrong picture, which makes sense. And can you imagine playing? Can you imagine playing today? Yeah. Like, it's got to be a completely different world.
Completely. Because something could be completely innocent, and just a perception of a picture or video could get out there, and it looks like something's not right. So I don't blame the players for being really careful. And I mean, the day of. I mean, heck, I can remember playing for the Blues, and we, played the Blackhawks, and, we didn't even fly on charters yet. And so we had a flight out the next morning to go to Detroit or somewhere. And I remember, our coach was like, okay, hey, the bus is going to pull up on Rush Street, and we're dropping all of you off at the bar. And, I'm kind of a young player, and I'm looking around. I'm like, do I get off and whatever? And it's like, if one guy stays on the bus, everybody's back on the bus and goes to the hotel. So I'm like, well, I'm not staying on the bus, I'm going. And so, 20 of us get off the team bus, go right in the bar. He's like, this is the way it is that you guys go out as a team. If it's a day off or whatever, you go have some fun, and, you make sure you don't leave anybody at the bar. You take care of each other, and then everybody comes home. And I think that some of that team bonding through those chances to go out as a group of guys, whether it's, we'd go to dinner, it'd be like 15 guys going to dinner or 12 guys going to dinner on a nightly basis on the road. And, I think then, it's just a way that you can get close with your teammates. And, sometimes you really feel closer to your teammates when you travel like that than you do when you come back home to your own family. I know it sounds weird, but it is some truth to that.
No, I agree. And being around teams, that traveled and traveling for many, many years, I certainly agree with you from what I've seen and what I've been around. But I think one thing that I don't think people, they may not just understand that, I consider myself incredibly fortunate to have been able to fly the team charter, right? And I don't think people understand how important that is for a professional sports team, because hockey, baseball stays in town for 3-4 games, depending on the series, right? But
yes.
Hockey, you fly out after the game. And you get into the next city at like 3 a.m, especially if you're traveling, if you're a West Coast team. The bus picks you up at the tarmac, go to the hotel. Then for the most part, you're skating the next several hours later. But it's, when does the bus leave? Bus, hotel, bus, rink, bus, charter, and, rinse and repeat for the most part. So yes, there is incredible travel, but there is a need because, boy, you are on the road. You are moving all the time. But you just said there weren't charters back when you played.
Yeah,
I can't imagine, Gibo, like having a professional sports team walk on. Can you imagine being on a plane and here comes a whole sports team coming on, and these guys are big, and with the leg room in a standard config plane. What the heck I got to ask you, what was that like traveling commercial with the team, and were there other people on the plane?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, you just got on a regular flight. So if you're flying from Chicago to Detroit or wherever, we'd get on the and this is one of the things about it. When you're a rookie, you are always getting the middle seat, right? Even if you had given, like, somehow you got the window or the aisle, it was like, hey kid, what seat you have? And I'd be like, oh, and they're like, yeah, here's my middle. But that's just the seniority process, right? I mean, when I was older, and then I did the same thing to the rookies, I'm like, hey, I need a window, I need an aisle or whatever. But you could see the people walk, there's 20 players walking on, coaching staff, medical staff, equipment staff. And it's not like today, there's not as many coaches, right? You'd have maybe, three coaches, a head coach, an assistant coach, and maybe a video coach. You didn't have all that other support staff. And then you'd have like one medical and maybe 2 equipment guys. So, but you walk on and maybe Brett Hull or Brendan Shanahan is getting on the plane and they're walking down the aisle and people are like, that's Brett Hull. Mr. Hull, can I have your autograph? And, he's walking back to row, because it's not like we've got first class seats. It's like, we're all in like 17 or 32 or 23. So it was pretty wild, but I think for fans, it was great because it was just, almost like winning the lottery to be able to see.
That's insane.
And if it was, somebody that was your favorite team,
yeah,
or favorite player getting on a plane just randomly, it was, it was fun. It was fun for that because you were always staying overnight in the cities, the way the league is now. And even, shortly after that, I don't want anybody to think that I traveled commercially my entire career. Shortly after those first, maybe 2 seasons, and certainly when I got to Anaheim, it was like no way you could get around the country without chartering, especially from the West Coast. And it was a luxury. It's nicer now because our configuration was just regular seats. Back in my day on the charters, now all the seats are first class seats and it's comfortable. But the product, you need the guys to be as rested and refueled as possible. So it's so important for their nutrition to get on the plane and eat immediately. And then try to, get some downtime. And if you can sleep, if it's a long trip, you got to get some sleep. But because when you get in the hotel and from traveling, when you get in there 2, 3 in the morning, sometimes you're just so kind of wired from the travel, you lay there staring at the ceiling for a couple hours.
Yeah. And then you don't know where you wake up. You don't know where you are. You don't know what time it is. You don't know what is going on.
You don't know where the bathroom is. I wouldn't be the first to walk into the closet thinking I was in the bathroom because wait a minute, that's the last hotel I was in, so.
So true. You just get so turned around. And especially if you go back to back and you're like, what the hell? Where am I?
Sometimes you really don't know where you are. And you're like, you look at your roommate. Well, now they don't really have roommates on the road, but I always had a roommate. And I look at my roommate who was Steve Rooch and I'm like, Rooch, what city are we in right now? Because I might have been in Edmonton and Calgary and Vancouver and you kind of lost track of which city you are now in and what team you were playing that night. And it's a real testament to the players to be able, and I know it's things that fans never see, but just to be able to get up and get prepared and get ready for that next game, especially with a back-to-back. The Edmonton Calgaries, and not that it's that far from by flight, but still, it is just such a grind to, wake up and try to figure out how the heck am I going to play tonight?
Yeah, and the broadcasters waking up going, how in the heck am I going to go on air tonight?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of eye drops.
I got bags on my eyes. My mom would call. So, did you get any sleep last night? Well, come on, Mom. Really? No. It was a long night. We got in late. Yeah, a lot of eye drops. I went through lots of eye drops to try to recover. And I say that in jest because I didn't play go through what you guys did. So, but yeah, so. Well, good times, man. I'll tell you what, for jumping off the cliff without a net, just kind of rolling, I think we covered some fun stuff.
We covered ground, yeah.
Well, more of a background, kind of where you and I came from. And I think that's kind of what we wanted to kind of hit on a little bit for people that might not know. And certainly a lot of these stories are going to resurface, throughout the course of this podcast. So I think we should put a little exclamation point on podcast number 1. What do you think?
Yeah, let's put a lid on it. Because, we want people to want more.
Less is more. Right? Less is more, people.
All right, the next episode 2 will be half this amount of time then. Right? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know. If it's not interesting, then yes. But, hopefully it will be.
Well, I'm just going with your less is more.
Yeah. Well, less is more, meaning we're going to stop now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're going to, like you said, let's put a lid on this thing.
Let's put a lid on it and move on to episode 2. And we'll see where we go from there.
We will see you next time. Thanks for joining us on the premiere episode of our podcast.